People across the state of Wisconsin love wildlife for a variety of reasons. Some enjoy the thrill of tracking a buck through the woods, while others enjoy seeing wildlife at local parks while out driving or out on their own property. Observing wildlife in their native habitat is something we're all lucky to experience living in Wisconsin. Golden Sands RC&D, a regional conservation nonprofit in central Wisconsin, has been working for over 45 years on developing cooperative practices around natural resource conservation in central Wisconsin. Recently, we've been working with a variety of private landowners in central Wisconsin on forming cooperatives that focus on woods and wildlife habitat management. In this video series, we've talked to numerous landowners, foresters, organizational leaders, volunteers, and natural resource professionals across the state of Wisconsin to share information with landowners on how they can get involved in cooperative land management practices. This first video focuses on cooperative wildlife habitat management. First, we will look into what is needed for wildlife habitat, and then we will look into collaborative practices landowners can participate in to enhance wildlife habitat on their own property.
When we're speaking of wildlife habitat, there's really four elements that we need to consider. That is food, water, shelter, and space. By space, I'm talking about you need as much of it as you possibly can. A lot of it's dependent upon mobility of the species that you're interested in. Ruffed grouse, they can spend their whole lives in about 40 acres. Your typical white-tailed deer, about 160 acres are needed to sustain a doe for a full year. Bucks, they'll range 3-4 square miles. And so a lot of landowners have this perspective that they can have their 80 acres and have all the deer living on their property. And it's just not the case. You need space. And by that, it helps to have cooperatives where you can combine adjacent landowners and properties to get that space component you need for wildlife habitat. We're neighbors. We're talking about neighbors and acting neighborly, working together for finding a benefit, and it can take you to a whole nother level. Teamwork is an important aspect. Probably the most rewarding thing I've done in my professional career is teamwork. And you know what? It applies to your personal life as well. And so you can get landowners together, establish goals and objectives among them, and it can take you really to another level as far as wildlife habitat.
DMAP is the Deer Management Assistance Program, and that is a Wisconsin DNR program where we work with private and sometimes public landowners, working with them on their habitat management and basically just getting out there and communicating with landowners and kind of, again, spreading the word of habitat management, but then building those relationships. And that's a real big thing with DMAP, is getting that relationship between the landowner and the local biologist and the local forester. So that's something we really like to foster with the program. And as far as cooperative management, that goes hand in hand with habitat. Obviously, the more land that you have working together under the same habitat management is the more impact you're going to have.
DMAP acts as a foundation for private landowners to connect with their neighbors as well as natural resource professionals. It also provides them the opportunity to learn about ways to enhance wildlife habitat on their property.
Well, I'd heard about the DMAP project, and then I read a little bit about it, and then I contacted the neighbors. We've got 3 different property owners that are involved in our project, and we discussed what we intended to accomplish doing it, and everybody was in agreement to it, and it worked out very well for us.
At first, when I heard, what's DMAP and what does that mean? Is that just another organization to belong to, or how does it help out? And I was delighted and very happy when I found out just the opportunities that they gave us and the more inroads with our neighbors, with the management of the land, especially for deer. I'm a deer hunter, and what types of plants and things of that nature. So we worked after we met these other owners, and we all kind of got together and talked things over. It was really enlightening.
I was the coordinator for our Level 3 program in the Richfield Township. Since doing that, we've shot a couple real dandy bucks on our property from some of the implementation and the suggestions that the DMAP program brought to our place over in Richfield.
We found out we could have a site visit from a forester and a wildlife manager. It was really cool when they came out here, and it seems every time we come in contact with DMAP, whether it's at a meeting or a site visit, we just learn so much more, which is definitely a great benefit.
So when you enroll in DMAP, you are eligible for a site visit when you do have 160 acres or greater. That site visit includes a wildlife biologist, so generally it's your local biologist or your local deer biologist, a local forester, and then the landowner and whoever else they want to attend on the site visit. And generally it's done in the spring, summer, or fall, and we're very flexible on the dates, whatever works for the landowner. And we set up a time for all those parties to meet, and they walk and talk on the land. So the landowner's the guide. You show us what is important to you. We like to see as many different habitat types that are on the property. And then we just talk about what we see. The forester and the wildlife biologist do take some forestry measurements for a little bit of background for the management plan, but then also just for the discussions. And again, it's all focused around your goals, your being the landowner's goals of the property, and trying to reach your goals from a wildlife perspective, and in many cases it's very similar to a timber perspective as well. So they go hand in hand.
As a participant, you may just learn something new from your site visit, or you can take what you learned and implement the recommended suggestions on your property.
After the site visit, the forester and the wildlife manager put together a plan for us, which we try to follow best we can. So they suggested a few things for 2020 for us to do, and one was to plant some hazelnut bushes, which we did.
We're managing for a little less deer because of the heavy browse. We have one area in our hardwoods in the northeast corner that was pretty heavily browsed. So it's just a matter of what it takes to minimize the forest damage.
And then I'm intending to plant spruce in here. Take all these maples out, just leave a couple of oaks for the acorns, but all these maples especially. And our neighbor had some real nice spruce, and the deer used to just love it in there. But the spruce have gotten too big. The deer aren't underneath it. They just don't go in it anymore. So what I'm trying to do is to make a wildlife area in here, not so much the spruce for the pulp or anything else, but a wildlife area here that'll go on for maybe another 50 years.
Golden Sands RC&D has been working with neighboring landowners in central Wisconsin to form Deer Management Assistance Program cooperatives. In the past few years, we have enrolled over 90 new landowners into 10 different group cooperatives. Through our new project, funded through the U.S. Forest Service, we have the opportunity to work with landowners through our 12 counties in central Wisconsin to connect neighboring landowners to form group cooperatives that are greater than 160 acres. So this means that they can form a DMAP cooperative that qualifies them for a site visit as well as a management plan.
Private landowners who primarily want to manage their property for deer should consider getting involved in Quality Deer Management, or QDM. One national organization called Quality Deer Management Association, or QDMA, works to promote sustainable, high-quality deer populations, wildlife habitats, and ethical hunting experiences through research, education, advocacy, and hunter recruitment. There are a number of QDM cooperatives throughout the state. Jeff Hale, a landowner in Adams County involved in a Golden Sands RC&D DMAP cooperative, also manages a QDM cooperative for landowners in this area.
By getting a group of fellows or gals together that would be willing to participate in quality deer management, you're sustaining the herd not only for your property, but for all the adjoining properties if those people are willing to cooperate. And it's going to be a healthier herd for all your neighbors as well, because deer migrate. They don't just stay on your property. They go from one neighbor to the next, and so if the more you can encourage your neighbors to become part of QDM, the better off the deer population is going to be for your entire area. I took the map and I took our property and put a compass in the middle of it, and I drew a 2-mile radius from the center of our property, and we sent out over 200 letters to all the adjoining landowners on 2 different occasions. And then with the door knocking and the stopping of the vehicles and walking in the gates when they were open and tracking people down, we were able to grow it into a pretty significant program in just a short time.
Brendan Woodall with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service works with private landowners to restore prairies that provide habitat for the endangered Cardinal blue butterfly. Not only does the habitat improvement projects he works on enhance habitat for Cardinal blue butterflies, but it also improves habitat for deer, grouse, and numerous other species that reside in healthy prairies.
Cooperations between neighborhood landowners is very important for the Cardinal blue butterfly, because the Cardinal blue butterflies, they don't migrate. So they stay within a 200-yard area of other occupied locations. So, for example, where we're here today, this landowner has restored and has a Cardinal blue butterfly population. And so we've worked with the neighbor directly to the south, which has about 10 extra acres. And then here where we're at today is about 28 acres. And then, so working with cooperatives around this area, we've actually restored 3 acres of the Wild Rose School District forest pipeline. And then we're working with the town of Rose as well. And so all together, besides just this 28-acre parcel that we've restored, we've actually worked with almost 100 acres. And we only do that by cooperatives. And then that also benefits the Cardinal blue butterfly by increasing their population and increasing the habitat available to them.
Private landowners across Wisconsin can also get involved in Wiffle Gap, which is the Wisconsin Forest Landowner Grant Program, or EQIP, which is the Environmental Quality Incentives Program. EQIP is available through the Natural Resource Conservation Service, or NRCS. Landowners in these programs are encouraged but not required to be part of cooperatives.
So the 2 primary ones that I work with, and the 2 most common ones that have the most available funding, are EQIP, the Environmental Quality Incentives Program, and CSP, the Conservation Stewardship Program. You can think of EQIP kind of as a problem solution program. So in NRCS lingo, you have a resource concern on your property, and we have a conservation practice to address that resource concern. Pollinator planting or conservation cover. We also do some patch clear cuts, edge feathering in order to smooth the transition between, let's say, a hard edge between a field where you have flat corn or a crop, and then boom, we have a tree wall and we go up, so you can come in and feather that edge so it's a more gradual transition, which is good for all kinds of species. We also do some snag and den tree enhancements, especially if you had a woodlot where you've done a lot of firewood cutting in the past. You might not have a lot of dead trees, and those can provide really, really important homes basically for things like flying squirrels, different kinds of bats, woodpecker habitat, and very, very important for secondary cavity nesting species that there are a whole lot of. So,
yeah, well, the beauty of building a good relationship with your NRCS staff is you can talk about your goals, and they work with you to try to formulate a plan that mirrors up your goals. And if you can get other organizations, either private organizations, other state or federal programs, along with NRCS, they kind of work hand in hand together. And so where one maybe falls off, another one will pick up, and it works really quite well.
Regardless of size, each property has a role to play. We hope that you consider getting involved in collaborative strategies to enhance wildlife habitat. We encourage you to contact Golden Sands RC&D, the Wisconsin DNR, or NRCS to learn more about how you can get involved in cooperative habitat improvement projects on your property.